Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 82 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. I had to think for a second because it's actually been a minute since I've been up in the stew, but we are very, very excited to be back. First and foremost, before we get to the formalities and talking about our day and our weeks and everything like that, I just want to give a big shout out. Thank you so much to Saoirse for appearing on the show for episode 81. If you guys didn't have a chance to go check it out, a lot of insights and also our first female guest on the show, making history over here. I actually had somebody text me and say that, by the way.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, he was like, is that the first female you've ever had on the show? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, congrats on making history. So, Saoirse, thank you so much for the absolute banger of an episode. Like I said, if you guys haven't had enough time to check it out, be sure to do so after this episode. With that out of the way, how are we feeling today, my co-host?
I'm feeling great, as always, especially coming off a banger of a guest episode. I had a great time recording that last week, and I am so glad to be back in the stew here with you once again. Now, I think it's been a very insightful week. I think I've gotten a lot of, I have a lot of things to talk about personally.
I was going to say the same thing, man. Like, that's why I came into the stew. Sorry to cut you off, but I just came into the stew with, like, the mindset. I literally said, like, 3 times, I have a good feeling about this episode. I can't really explain why, but it's just, like, vibes are good.
Sometimes just a good day.
Yeah, a lot of things to talk about. And you know what? Yeah. You're 100% right. It was a very good day today. So why don't you kick us off?
What do you want to first off, we're having a late night recording, but I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling excited, and I'm feeling happy. But truth be told, guys, I think I've been making some moves lately, you know, life-wise. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but I had like I was in a bit of a rut lately. I was in a bit of a rut where I'll say I was going... the way I like to say it is I was going everywhere and nowhere all at once. And it's where you feel as though you're doing everything, but you're not moving. And it's like this weird, it's like trying to swim in space. It's like you can do all the, but like you don't move. You just stay in the same spot because like, there's no air resistance push-up, whatever. Science, like insert science fact here. But that's what it felt like. It just felt like I was just floating and like time was just passing by. And like no matter how much I was trying to swim, I wasn't going anywhere, but I feel as though I've gotten my tether, and now I'm reeling myself into the location I want to be at. I'll be sure to dive into it further. I mean, I feel like I've just dropped a bit of a bomb on like what's going on with me, but like from a week standpoint, it's always a nice week when you get to rediscover your purpose. I think that's a really nice. It's a really great feeling, and it's definitely been an uplifting force in my week and genuinely in my life lately, I guess, helping me get out of that rut and just grabbing onto that tether. But on to you, man. How's your week been?
I mean, before we pivot, I feel like there are some things. I mean, we can obviously approach this later on if you want to, but I did want to ask, do you want to elaborate on the whole finding the purpose situation, or is that a later thing?
It was kind of like I wanted to talk about it after because I know I'm going to go on a lot of tangents, and I want to give you a time to, talk about your week before.
Yeah, get into the introductory and whatnot. Absolutely. Yeah, okay, that's fair. Well, for me, again, my situation is kind of similar where it's been a couple, because for me, it's been a couple of weeks, right? For you, it's only been one where you recorded last week, but for me, it's been a couple weeks away from the pod. And I would say that it's some of the more eventful weeks that I've had in recent memory where I've had a lot of thinking and reflection on life. And there's definitely some insights that I got from that, but also I definitely had, I don't want to say a breakdown of sorts, but I had a bit of existential dread for a couple of days, and that definitely kind of hung over me like a dark cloud for a little while. But that's a very important note to tell all of you guys about, because even though we sit here and we talk about being happy and, overall life is good, there are still moments, even for us, where things kind of suck and you feel down in the dumps. But again, life is a marathon, not a sprint. So it's always about bouncing back and recovering from that. So I'll get more into that later. But overall, it's been a good couple of weeks, but definitely a lot of time for introspection and a couple of learning experiences. And I actually am going to frame a conversation with you regarding this existential dread as a question. I'm going to pose this to you as a question, as if I was a listener on the show. And I'm asking you for advice in this situation. And I wrote this down in like a very specific wording so that the question comes across very clearly about the rut that I was in. Okay? So the question is, or at least the little blurb that I wrote was, I need some serious help. For the first time in a long time, I had a large wave of existential dread wash over me in regard to starting something new. All over social media, I see so many people doing better than me at what I want to start. Should I still start this venture, or do I just try to find something else? How can I overcome this fear if you think I should start?
I think that that's first off, I think it's a great question in the sense that in today's day and age, I used to hear this very often is there's no original thought. And the premise of it is that it's hard to find something that nobody else is doing. So it's hard to not get demoralized that somebody else is doing it better. But if I were to approach it from a business lens, there's a question you always got to ask as an entrepreneur. Is there room for one more? Meaning that in any market that you want to enter, is there room for one more company? Because if you took the telecommunication services in Canada, you have Rogers, Bell, TELUS, right? You have your big companies and then nobody else. There's a reason nobody competes. There isn't room for one more in the market. But in, some kind of niche, let's say watchmaking, right? Even though you have dominant brands, you're seeing emerging markets in independent manufacturers, right? So there you find there's room for one more. And I would say that you should also think about why you're doing things. Because while career advancement and money is really important, sometimes passion comes above that. And I don't think that that's... I'll actually get into that in a moment, maybe a little bit later. But the point being that, I think we overestimate how little opportunities there are. And then we always regret that we didn't go after them because we keep thinking that it's too late. People always say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Yeah. And it's ask yourself, so what? So what if you fail? What do you have to lose? Because oftentimes we are just throwing out, if I lose, it's over. Oh my God, all that time I spent. It's what were you going to do with that time otherwise? Because 95% of the time, you wouldn't have done anything more magnificent than having tried. So my advice would be, maybe it seems unreasonable. Maybe you see other people that are better. Maybe it's scary. But if you love it, if you enjoy it, and if you want to give it a shot, try. Because trying is the only way to break yourself out of this cycle of failure, right? And, I talked about it on the episode with Saoirse, and I'll bring it up again because I think it's a very good illustration, is the circle of self-sabotage. I'm going to pass it to you, just look at it for a little bit. But the point being that, and I'll toss it up on screen again here, did on the last episode too, the point being that you can't be so afraid to fail that you don't try. So who cares if you're going to fail? That's the whole point, is that you let yourself down the second you start thinking, what if it goes wrong? Because unless you're thinking, let me jump off this building without a parachute, because that's basically guaranteed death, then something like this, it's not really something you need to worry about, right? So that was a very long and convoluted answer, but my advice would be, take a leap of faith. You never know what's going to be on the other side, and if you enjoy what you're doing, then the time isn't being wasted. And you would have spent it doing something else that probably wouldn't be as worth as much as just trying.
That's a good answer. And honestly, you don't really need to apologize for it being a long and convoluted answer because it's not a simple question. Oh, yeah. I didn't ask you what 1 + 1 is, okay? I asked you a deep-setted question that I think a lot of people face when it comes to these things. But it was a very foreign feeling for me because to be completely transparent with all of the people watching this show, I think that both of us were raised in a manner to have a certain degree of confidence in ourselves. I think that it is still something that we developed over time. It's not like we were just magically born with it, but through the earlier trials and tribulations that our parents made us do, whether it was sporting activities or public speaking or whatever other activities they put us through, those things help you build a bit of a resume within yourself where you can look back and say, hey, I did those things. But for some reason, this was the first time in a while where I felt fear about starting something. So I just realized that for a lot of people out there, this might be a predominant feeling when it comes to a lot of the things that you're trying to do. So I just figured that it would be a very good question to ask in that format where it could be very insightful for other people as well. But I'll ask a follow-up question for you. You said one of the big entrepreneurial questions you would ask yourself in this situation is there room for one more? How can you actually answer that question? Because in the example you're giving, where we're talking about telecommunications in Canada, you talk about whatever, big 3, big 4 companies that exist. The reason why no other company, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is something that I've heard, is that one of the reasons why those companies run everything is because anytime a smaller player gets into the industry, they buy them out and then add that to part of their, vast network of telecommunications operations. So, for example, Rogers, I think they own Fido, if I'm not mistaken. They purchased Fido, right? And now it's just part of their business as well, and they can keep pricing consistent. So that's where you have like this whole very, very questionable business practices, because in reality, it's very much a monopoly where you have a couple of companies running pretty much everything. But again, like I said, how do you know if the industry you want to get into or whatever you want to try, how do you know whether it's oversaturated or not? Because I feel like that word oversaturated in and of itself can often discourage people from starting.
Like first things first is when I say, is there room for one more? The reason I say it is because a lot of people want to, you want to analyze an opportunity logically too. But I do want to preface that the most important thing is if you're going to enjoy it, do it. And I will tie it back to myself as well and the personal things that I've done. And to answer the question, how do you know if there's room for one more? It's not an easy question per se, because it's different for every venture. Like whatever you're trying to do, you'd have to do some level of analysis and look into the market and be like, is there, when was the last time that a company entered this market, right? And what did they do to succeed? And is it feasible for me to succeed? And also, you should ask the question, what am I going to do differently? Because, or you can say, what's a gap that you're finding, right? For us, for example, with this podcast, yes, mainly it is driven by passion and enjoyment, but there is a small niche, and that's, the movement for positivity, which is something that, we identified is that I see negative content all the time. Let me see something different, right? And that's what kind of pushed us towards this. So it's always saying, is there a niche? Is there an entry opportunity? Is there something that I can do differently? And ask yourself, because, every person individually is so powerful. You have, I talked about this on the last episode, is you have a superpower. And, there's a thing I heard. I don't know if you know who Jay Shetty is, because our mom talks about him all the time.
Yeah.
But, and I've never listened to his podcast, but I've seen clips from it, and I saw a very wonderful clip where he said that you're probably so incredibly good at one thing, but it's so normal to you that you don't even realize how incredible you are at it. And a lot of the time, I meet people with such phenomenal skills that they just never think is crazy, because they haven't been exposed to somebody who saw it and was like, oh my God, you're just actually really good. And that's so normal for us nowadays. It's you just accept that oh yeah, I'm maybe good at one thing, but you don't really think about it. And the point being that you drive yourself, if you focused in on that niche, there's something that you are better at than anybody else in this world.
Right.
And if you just use that, you harness it and you apply it, that gives you a differentiation factor that nobody else can mimic, right? That's a market entry opportunity, is when you can provide value to somebody else, right? And that's just for an externally facing thing. Internally facing, can you just provide more value for yourself? That's it. I did actually want to continue, but I'll give you a break if you have any comments on that answer.
Honestly, no. I think that is a good answer. And quite frankly, as much as I want to say what this new idea that I had was and how I got out of it, and frankly, I had a pretty quick bounce back from it, which is nice, because that's something I could go on a very long tangent for, which I'm not going to, because I want to keep the conversation on the track we're going on. But a quick side kind of footnote would be, I was able to bounce back from that existential dread after about 3 hours. I kind of said that it was looming over me for a couple of days, because it kind of built up to a point where I was really in my head and oh God, I really don't want to do this. I'm scared. But then after 3 hours of reanalyzing and being okay, here are the facts, think logically, don't think with your, silly emotional monkey brain, that is just looking at the fear and emotions and focus on the facts like you're pointing out right now. After that, I kind of got over it, but I can't talk about what that venture is until it's fully started, because the brain, as we all know, gets a similar kick from telling people, hey, I'm doing this, as actually doing the thing. So it's very important to always, yes, share your, moments and everything like that with the people around you. And especially when we're making content and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to pick and choose what to share and what to keep private until we build it a little bit more. So in this case scenario, I want to give it a couple more weeks until I actually bring it up. But I am very excited to get into it and actually get started on it. And when I slowly start to build a bit more profile, I will definitely share with you guys what that story is. Sure. But I know that you had another train of thought, so please continue.
I mean, my train of thought is going to deviate into more trains of thought, as we always do on this podcast. But I wanted to talk about AI. Now, you know that I absolutely love AI, guys. Like, I am an AI fiend. And it's not that I know a lot about it, because I have researched it, because it's been like something I'm genuinely interested in, and obviously all the hype and everything. But I've, worked my fair share with AI, and I've built my own projects with it. And the one thing I always get whenever I show somebody a cool project is always like, oh, couldn't you like just download this like online? Like, isn't there something like this that already exists? And I always like end up at like, yeah, that's not why I built it. Because if you ask the question, like for some of the projects, like, one that I built is like a stock analyst basically. And it just pulls in market data and analyzes a stock that I tell it to analyze. Now, it's not really completely effective. It's never going to replace a human being. But I always ask people like, or I show people, I'm like, yo, look at this thing that I built. And then it's always like, you could have just like downloaded this. Like, what's the point? What's the point? And the point is that I enjoyed it. The point is that I had fun doing it. Was there a shorter way to have achieved the same thing? Sure. But sometimes the optimal route isn't the best route. That's the best saying, is that the optimal route isn't always the best route. The path of least resistance is not always the best path. And it leads me to AI. It's I want to say it's an infection. It's a really big problem that I'm seeing, especially with students and even myself. Like, I noticed this recently and I was like, holy, this is crazy. And I want to tie it to a quote from 1979 from an IBM manual. And it said, a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. A manual from 1979. And what we're seeing today is that AI is making decisions for us. And there's a difference between like decisions and management decisions. And the reason I say it is like, if you went on Google Maps, there is a correct way to go, right? There is a correct manner, the fastest route to take, right? You shouldn't, nowadays people don't really know streets that well. Like, if you ask like me and you, like, oh yeah, where is this thing located? Like, I know there's some people who are crazy about streets and they know their entire area like mapped geographically, but like, I don't know that. I don't know where every single street is. I could probably like reason it out, but I use Google Maps because it's just more effective. It's better at the task, and that's fine because it's just not a piece of knowledge that's necessary. But decision making is a very, very necessary skill, and one that I think is being really is flying completely under the radar. Is it would be like, wait, why am I losing it? Hold on. I guess it's decision making and pattern recognition. That's what it is. Pattern recognition is like one of the most powerful tools that humans have. And if you think about it, like pattern recognition is what we're taught from a young age. Math is pattern recognition. English is pattern recognition. Science is pattern recognition, right? Everything is pattern recognition. And what we're seeing is that people like relegate all their tasks to AI, and now you're losing the ability to recognize patterns, right? Because you're not actually doing the analysis to look at the fine points, right? And it's like, do you know how like machine learning models work? Like how chat gets smarter is that it replies over and over, and over time it like teaches itself through repetitions. It recognizes patterns. The way that like large language models work, like they type out words, is that as they start a sentence, they just like, what is the most probable next word? And it'll like list out every single word with an assigned probability. And then whichever one is at the top, it puts that one as next, right? And then that's how it like built it out. Now we get good at like making paragraphs at a time. But that's how it started out, was just one word at a time. It would be like, what is the most like likely thing based on historical patterns, right? So it learns by pattern recognition, and so do we. Humans are no different in the way that we learn. But the problem is, since we're just chucking everything at AI, we're not taking the time to actually recognize patterns. And I even noticed it in myself because I love pattern recognition. And it's one thing that it's a skill that I built up over a long time. And it helps me study for exams because I can just recognize, like I can remember things and like I can recognize how to do specific types of equations. But then when I found myself like putting things into AI and be like, summarize it, then quiz me on it, it's like almost as if I'm losing that entire like reading through it and actually learning the material and recognizing those patterns. And it was really interesting. It was kind of like an eye-opening moment for me. Like, holy, this tool isn't just like, it's not entirely helping me because I'm letting it make decisions for me. That's a problem, right? You shouldn't be getting AI to make decisions for you because that's a very scary concept. And we were warned by IBM, 46 years ago, 47 years ago now? Like, that is it's a very scary world we live in, especially with like AI agents and stuff coming out where they can do things for you. Like, it's scary. It's very scary, but it's really like, it's very interesting. Like, but you need to be careful is what I'm saying. Because like even me, myself, like I made that mistake and I was like, wait a minute, I'm literally deteriorating my own brain.
It's so funny because the second you mentioned AI, I practically jumped out of my chair just because I was literally right before we sat down to record this, I was listening to my Canucks podcast while I was shaving and everything like that, just kind of chilling. And they brought up, it's funny because they like to talk about the downfall of the Toronto Maple Leafs all the time because majority of the Vancouver market doesn't like the Toronto Maple Leafs pretty much, right? Most of the league doesn't like Toronto. And I'm not in that camp. I don't have any like special hatred towards them. But these guys were talking about it. And they mentioned that one of their coworkers who wrote an article on the Toronto Maple Leafs downfall and some of the things that happened, apparently one of the like business executives in their organization showed up to a meeting, like one of their war room style meetings during the trade deadline, where you're making the most important moves that will affect this franchise for the coming years. And like really, really, you should be taking these decisions very seriously. This business exec who doesn't know a lot about hockey very clearly showed up with, I want X, Y, Z done, and I want to trade these people. Here are some mock trades. The analysts are looking at it like, dude, you use chat or something. You used a large language model to get these mock trades. That's a dumpster fire of a situation to use a chat GPT in because literally what they did on the show is right after bringing this story up, they plugged into chat GPT. Hey, I'm the owner of the Vancouver Canucks. How do I trade for Macklin Celebrini? You want to know what chat said? First things first, we're going to need to trade Elias Pettersson. He's a superstar center. Okay, superstar. Like, what are we talking about? Clearly outdated information. Then, this is where it gets hilarious. Second player in the package. You're definitely going to need to give them a superstar like Quinn Hughes. Ah, yes, Quinn Hughes, who is still on the Vancouver Canucks. What are we doing here, right? And the crazy thing is, you're talking about this happening at the highest scale of professional sports. People in these big roles are using AI. It's ridiculous. You're 100% right. Our brains are going out the window, engine kaput, because all we're doing is chucking everything at AI. And we got to be very careful about that. 100% agree.
I think we're reaching like a similar like mental detriment to social media because it's like, I see such a parallel in the sense of like, okay, whether you want to like I'll go with, they're both so amazing. Like these are some of the greatest technologies to ever exist. And I mean that. Social media, possibly one of the greatest things to ever exist.
Yep.
AI, that as we know it today, one of the greatest things to ever exist. And yet they both have such like large detriments to our brains. And like, it's just, you need to be very careful about it. And obviously, I don't know whether I'm the one to be hopping on here because Lord knows that I use AI for assignments all the time, right? But major decisions is something that I wouldn't suggest using it with. And a big example I'll use is I do a lot of like casing for business like strategy. So I'll like look at a problem and I'll be like, how can I solve it? And one thing that I kind of like noticed is the more that I used AI to help me solve these problems, the more I realized I had a harder time solving them, which is really interesting because like after doing a couple of these cases with AI, I went back and did them without it. And I was like, for some reason, it wasn't like registering in my brain. Like typically, there's like set frameworks, right? Like if I want to enter this market, this is how I act. If I want to enter this market, this is how I act. But the more I used AI to practice, the more I realized like I literally am losing my intelligence. Like my intelligence was going down. Actively, I felt IQ points just boom, 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 boom.
So
like
you're
that.
like,
I was just bop, 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 bop.
so you're pretty much
falling
like
down.
Harry in that.
Yes, in
yeah,
Flash. Like
yeah.
I'm literally just like the more I use like this intelligence
Thinking
booster.
cap.
Exactly. I was using a thinking cap that made me stupider, right? And if you're not careful, you're gonna eviscerate your brains. So like, it was genuinely, I was scared. Like I'm not even joking, guys. When I like realized it and I look back, I was like, holy, like I'm actually terrified.
I'm getting dumber.
Right? I was literally getting dumber, and that's something that's really scary because it's like a tool that's broadcasted like it's a god. It's like, oh my god, this AI can do anything. And like, don't get me wrong. You will hear me yapping about Claude if you ever talk to me. Like, I love Claude. It's so amazing. But it has its flaws too, especially to a person. And like, just a fear in my heart even talking about it. About how like, this is a wonderful tool. But God, is it scary. It is scary. It is very scary. And we just need to be careful, hold on to your intelligence, and also have more faith in yourself. I see a lot of people turning to AI because they're like, oh yeah, I have no idea. And it's like, bro, we're still not at the point where AI is smarter than us. We're not there yet. And once we hit that, I mean, you know what? Everything I say, just throw it out the window, I guess. But like, for now, put on your real thinking caps. And, you know, let's keep our heads on straight, guys.
Just as a kind of a wrap-up note here on the AI, because I want to get more to like your personal life and like get more on some other topics here. But just to wrap up, do you think that there's going to be a day where AI is smarter than all of us?
Yeah, there's I believe it's like AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is when we reach a point where AI is smarter than the like collective humanity. Like as in, if you put all our brain power together, AI would be smarter
Than that. Okay,
right? Like I don't know where we're at relative to that point yet. I really am not like that tapped into the AI market like that. But I do know that at some point, like that's kind of the goal. But some people still question whether it's even possible, I think. So it is really interesting. Like we don't really know.
Especially because like the problem, sorry to cut you off.
Go
the
ahead.
problem with large language models is it's all about what's input, right?
Yeah.
And then it takes that and tries to use it to learn and output. Don't get me wrong, AI is really good for some things. Like you said, it has its use cases. But one of the easiest things to say about it is you put garbage in, you get garbage out. Guarantee you there are some absolute morons out there typing in the most absurd things to ChatGPT.
Oh yeah.
100%. There's probably people out there sending some very, very questionable things.
I think it was like I was like told there's a massive like breakdown of where ChatGPT gets its like information.
Really?
And I'm pretty sure like 50% of it is from like Twitter and Reddit.
I was just about to say, imagine if you dumped all of Twitter into chat. What would happen?
That's what it trains
crazy.
on. So like it's very interesting to like look at. But there's also like new like AI breakthroughs. Have you heard about like sorry. Have you heard about like Mythos?
Oh, that's so funny
Anthropics
because
thing, yeah.
I literally just heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, because the whole thing, okay, I did hear, I just want to clear out, I know we're not an AI podcast, guys, but, like, I do want to clear out, because, like, a lot of people are talking about, like, oh, it, like, broke out of, like, its own system and stuff like that, which is what I
really?
thought at first, but, like, no, that's not the case. It was literally built to do that. Like, they asked it, like, here's a sandbox, break out of it. Like, if you can.
Damn.
And then it did, and then it, like, emailed them saying, like, hey, I broke out of your, like, sandbox. Because it, like, they asked it to, like,
Okay. Here's the interesting thing, because this is all my extent of Mythos.
Yeah.
You should probably elaborate a little bit more for anybody who doesn't know. Obviously, let's try to keep it concise. But for those of you who don't know, the baseline is that Mythos is Anthropic's latest AI model, correct? And it's a huge step forward from Claude, correct? I believe when they were launching it, they only gave access to a select number of people just to test and see what the functionality is and everything like that and how dangerous it could be. Is that true? False?
Yeah, so basically what happened was they put it in a sandbox, which is just like it's like some system, and it asked it to like break out of it, okay? And it broke out of it and found like thousands of bugs. And the way it broke out was by like writing code to try and break out. So it just like wrote like thousands and thousands and thousands of code until it broke out. This is again just my interpretation of what I was like what I've heard. I can't like confirm nor deny that this is 100% accurate, but I'm sure we'll put like a link to something that explains it properly. But like anyway, point being that like it was told to break out and then it broke out, but it found like thousands of bugs in the system of how it can like break through.
Interesting.
And they were so worried about giving this to the public because like it was just insane how many bugs they found, because it's just like, imagine a cyber like hacker that can like try a million different ways to break into your system in like 10 seconds. Right?
That's scary.
That's what the problem was. And then because of that, they launched like whatever Project Glasswing, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And they gave it to, like the top 7, or it's not really the Mag 7. They just gave it to like Apple, I think like Microsoft, Google. And they were like, what they were doing is they were saying patch everything according to the like bugs that this finds. So that if we release it to the public, like you're not getting cooked basically.
Interesting.
But like, yeah, again, how much of the public is actually going to get to use it? Who knows? Because like already you got to pay for like max plan to probably get it, which is pretty expensive. But like you never know. And I think it's really like it's a scary world we live in. It's very fast paced.
Yeah.
So you got to keep yourself on your toes, and you can't do that if you just be chucking everything at AI. Get AI to do everything. But point being that you got to trust yourself, guys. That was a very long tangent on AI, but yeah, I just really wanted to talk about it.
No, that's valid. And like the thing is, right, this is what I was thinking about a lot too. One thing you said earlier when I was asking you about, should I start this? And that big existential question, you said you look for a gap. You look for something different. At the end of the day, a podcast is still your internal thoughts, the internal dialogue, what you're thinking about. And you're kind of just taking somebody on a ride with that journey, right? So you don't really need to feel bad about talking about something that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be related to positivity, but it's still self-improvement, right?
I mean,
you
actually,
don't want to
there's one
dull
thing I
your
did
brain.
want to, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Kind of to bring back was that the one thing I mentioned is that sometimes the optimal route isn't the best route, because like AI is a very optimal route. Like if I want to get an assignment done, I chuck it, it's done in 20 minutes versus me taking like 6 hours, let's say, right? Like it's definitely optimal, but that doesn't mean that it's the best outcome. And I think that's a justification a lot of people use for a lot of decisions. It's like, oh, this is just faster. But it's like, is faster really the way that you're meant to live? Because you're inevitably going to die, right? Does that mean that you should just kill yourself because it's, it's optimal to just do it faster? It's like, no, because there's a plethora of things to do in between.
Yeah.
And there's so much to gain, so much to live that's beyond just the end result. And kind of just, wrapping the bow on the whole AI subject is like, just because it's quick, just because it's optimal, doesn't mean that it's what's best for you. And that's kind of an important thing that I do want to definitely continue talking about on the podcast, because it relates to kind of like the breakthroughs that I've had personally. But point being, don't chuck it all at AI.
Yeah, and think about it just like you said, to wrap it up. If you continue to do these things where you feel like you're getting dumber because you continue to throw your tasks at AI, don't you think you start to lose confidence when you try to do those things again? Like you were talking about the cases and everything where you couldn't really think anymore. That's kind of a scary feeling, and it's good that you woke up from it. We're like, hey, pause. I can't be doing this anymore. That is a good, barrier there. But if someone doesn't have that and, you just keep going, you don't really realize just how fast your brain's deteriorating, right? But anyways, let's get back on track to something that you mentioned earlier, talking about finding purpose and kind of more on your week, because obviously I have my story that I want to get to as well, but I want you to go ahead with yours first.
I'll try not to take too long.
Go for it.
Because the point being, and I really just wanted to tie it back, was the optimal the optimal route is not always the best route. I'm a person who kind of flickers between the idea of living for enjoyment and living for my goals, I guess, and achievement. Because I think it's important to have a balance of both. Like, you cannot live your entire life only seeking pleasure. Hedonism is not the best, or in my opinion, is not the best way to live, right? But neither is obsession over, goals and stuff. And I was trying to plan out my career moving forward, and especially my time in university. And I kind of asked myself all these questions about is this optimal for my career? Is this optimal for my future and for success? And then I wondered, suppose that I got there and then I look back and I realized that, everything I did was for one thing. So, now that I'm there, what's it really, worth? And I think I literally just saw this, as I was walking down the stairs to come into the stew.
Okay.
Was, I want to say, I don't know anything about golf, so I want to guess that it's Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, winning the Masters again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there was, a press conference, and he talked about how, basically just said it's just a trophy. And, everybody talks about how amazing it'll be at the top, but, once you're there, it's, it doesn't really mean that much. I want to say it's him. Don't quote me on that again. Like, I have no idea what any golfers look like aside from Tiger Woods.
Well,
like,
okay, if he won the Masters,
no,
right
but like
now,
right, like that's what makes sense.
yeah,
Logically,
he did
that
just
makes
win the
sense.
Masters.
But I just don't know whether that was him or not. I want to guess, but I'm not gonna say for certain.
Okay, well, editor's note. If I find it, I'll throw it up.
Ping. All right, best moving forward is that like he basically was just like, dude, the achievement isn't all that. Like once you're there, it feels like nothing because like at the end of the day, you always like kind of come back to the same point. Like there's always a high to ride, and then you come back, and then it's like it kind of made me wonder like if I spent all my time dedicating towards one thing, right, and I achieve it, that's really beautiful. But like there's a lot of like things I wanted to do along the way. And a lot of my biggest regrets when I look back are not like the things that I did, they're the things I didn't do.
Mhm.
And shout out Prince EA for that one. Long time no see. But I don't want to have looked back on my life saying, you know, what if I did? Because the only difference between the regret of trying and the regret of not trying is that the regret of trying leaves you with certainty, right? You actually took the step. There is not really like a what if, like, oh, it didn't work out. It is what it is, but at least you tried. But not trying leaves you with that like, oh, but what if things went differently? And what ifs kill you? So I kind of was like, what am I doing with my future? Is it just a career, or do I actually want to live right now? Because I can live, like I can plan out my life for 10 years in the future, but I'm not living for my 10-year self. I'm living for me now. And that doesn't always mean like, oh, let me just give it all up and go play video games all day and eat unhealthy and feel like horrible. Like, no. Because passion and success should be things that you also enjoy in the moment. Like, not always. There's always going to be times where you need to be disciplined, where you need to work through the hard times. But I'd ask you, like, how often is it that when you're doing something, like, that's advancing to yourself, how often does it actually really suck? Like, really ask yourself that question. Because take the gym. I think it's one of the most wonderful examples. Because the gym is inherently bad for you, if you think about it. Inherently, it induces physical stress and pain on your body, right? In, like, a nearly unwanted manner, right? But people love it. Like, you know, you love it. It's like you're going to the gym to hurt yourself and then incapacitate your muscles for the next, you know, couple of days.
You guys don't even understand. I literally just got back from the gym. My chest feels like it's been obliterated into a million pieces.
There you go. Case study exhibit A is that literally you go there to harm yourself so that you cannot move in the future in the sense of like in the next couple of days, right? But it's towards something greater that you're really enjoying. But I'd ask you, how often do you hate going to the gym?
Never.
Exactly, because it's something that's genuinely just fun for you. And that's the beautiful thing about passion, is that it can allow you to advance with love. You can advance while still being happy. And that's like a very big misconception, is like you can let happiness guide you. Just guide it towards good things, right? There's a difference between pleasure and happiness. I feel like there's a very big difference there, because happiness, I guess I would say you need to tend towards a state of peace, but like happiness and joy is different than a dopamine high. True joy comes from fulfillment, right? And fulfillment comes from achievement. Now, it doesn't always mean that that achievement needs to be the best thing, because the best thing I could be doing right now is locking myself in a basement and just studying. But it's like, what service is that always to my life? Doing the optimal outcome is not always the best thing, right? Because the optimal outcome means you never like hang out with your friends. The optimal outcome is that you never enjoy anything with your life, that I never cut my hair, that I never buy new clothes, that I never, you know, speak to my family, that I never speak to anybody. Those are the optimal things. But we're not placed here to live optimal lives, right? We weren't placed here to live perfect, optimal, by the book, what is best lives. We were meant to make mistakes, to learn to suffer. It's such a gift to be able to suffer, because it means that at some point you'll feel some joy. And the point being that you can't have your whole life driven by just achievement.
How does that tie back to your search for purpose in the past couple weeks?
I think like I was stuck in that rut because I was trying to just take the next step towards achievement. But in like light of all that, I kind of lost light to my passion, if that makes sense. Because I was so focused on like, okay, dude, you just got to get this one thing because then, you'll be fine. You'll be safe because you'll be, on your way to this career. And then also it was like, what am I going to do next year? Like that's what was on my mind is like, what do I do next year? Because there are things I want to do for enjoyment, but I can't do them if I want to, like, it's not optimal. I could do other things with that time. And I really just sat there and asked myself, like, is this optimal? And I said, no, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? And that was the best feeling was when I realized, like, it's not meant to be optimal. Like, that's, like, I'm so happy to talk about it because, like, we try to optimize our lives as if it's a game, as if it's, like, this is how we can maximize our, like, maximize life. But, like, that's not really the point. And, like, even to tie it back to a video game, right? We both play Overwatch, and for any of you that play, maybe you'll get it, is, like, do you always pick the best hero to play?
Hell no.
Right?
Lord knows I pick Genji half the time.
Exactly. Like, you don't pick the perfect counter every single time. Like, obviously, sometimes you do. But sometimes you just play, like, a hero that you love because you just enjoy playing them. It doesn't need to be the perfect counter to the enemy team because that's not why you're playing the game. Winning may be the objective, but enjoying it is the purpose. And
it's a very good analogy.
yeah, it's like that's what the importance is. It's like,
what's the point of playing the game if you're not going to have any fun?
Exactly. What is winning worth if you don't enjoy it? Yeah. That's all I have to say. Is like, what is it all worth if you're not smiling through all of it? So, to me, the purpose was understanding that life is more than just the next achievement. Life is not about optimizing, it's about enjoying. And it's not about maximizing. Sometimes we got to minimize our life to enjoy it more.
Very true.
You can't do everything, but you can do some things right, and you can live with a smile on your face.
The beauty of that, like the minimization, is that it ties perfectly into my life story on what I've been super, super excited to talk about is the power of focus. Everybody talks about it, but I don't think that enough people have experimented with it on a day-to-day basis where you have this one situation where it just made perfect sense. Okay? So literally everything changed for me when I bought a pair of headphones. Stick with me now. I've been going to the gym for a long time. Okay? Well, I don't know if you call, 3-ish years a long time, but it's been a while. And one of the big issues I've had is just continuing to level up. At times, I feel stagnant, and I feel like I'm not going anywhere, and I haven't gone up. Every gym bro knows when you hit a plateau, and you can't really get past that, kind of rut. But I went on Amazon, and I bought a pair of JBL headphones because, shout out Eric, he was the one who recommended them, because they don't break the bank. They're a good, entry-level set of headphones. I don't need anything crazy. I wasn't going to invest like $300 into a pair of Skull Candies, even if I wanted to, because it just doesn't make sense. They're just going to get beat up. I'm wearing them only to the gym. So I just bought this pair of JBL headphones because my AirPods were fried and the audio quality is not good anymore. So even if I turn it up to max, it's still super quiet. The second I put the headphones on and I went to the gym, every single one of my lifts jumped by 5 to 10 pounds. That sounds ridiculous and you might not believe me, but to prove it to you, one of the reasons why my chest is absolutely obliterated right now is because I went to the gym today. The most I've ever done on incline dumbbell bench is 80-pound dumbbells for 4. I went in today, and I did them for 8, and then my spotter, my home slice, who I'm going to get to a little bit later on, he said, yo, jump up and do the 90s. I was like, what? You want me to jump up by 10 pounds? I've never done that before. And he was like, yeah, dude, you just did that for 8. You can 100% go up. And I was like, all right, let me embrace the ego lift a little bit. So I pick up the 90s. He spots me. And I hit them for 6. Last 2 assisted, but I hit it for 6. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what the hell is in these headphones? But then I thought to myself about the full product. What changed? The playlist is the same. The audio quality is certainly better. But what I realized was the minimization was what changed my life. It was the cutting out of the external noise. When I put the headphones on, nobody else exists. It's me and the weight in front of me. That's it. There's nobody else in the gym. I'm not looking at anybody else slamming their weights or screaming. I can't hear anything. It's me, my music, and the weights. But the beauty of that is it helped me get even more locked in because I stopped going on my phone in between sets, which is something I've wanted to do for the longest time, but I just never have. So now, in between my sets, I will pace a little bit just to keep, the blood flowing and a little bit of let myself catch my breath a little bit between sets. But I will not go on my phone. I will not look at social media. I won't look at any of the TVs that are in the gym. I will either sit on my bench and stare at myself in the mirror and say, you got to keep pushing yourself, or I'll just lightly pace around while my music plays. Dead silence otherwise. And the beauty of it is it just allows you to focus and tap into what you're really capable of. I never would have picked up the 90s or hit it for 6-4 if you want to count just my reps. I never would have hit that if I wasn't focused and pulling the most out of my potential. We all have so much that we're capable of, but we're not utilizing it because we're too distracted by 5 different, streams of dopamine and information, constant stimulation in today's world. When you cut the noise out, the focus is the most powerful tool you have. And 1 hour of focused work can replace 6 hours of distracted work. Everybody knows that. And I don't think it's any of these books. Actually, I know that the 4-Hour Workweek talks about this as well. But the most important book that talks about it is, what is it? Is it Atomic Habits? I should know this. I just read this book. No, Deep Work. That's what it is. Deep Work. Makes sense. That book changed my perspective on focus, but I hadn't applied that to the gym. The second I got these headphones, though, cut everything out. Don't go on my phone. No extra stimulation. Just me thinking about, okay, last week I did this on the weight. This week I have to focus up. I have to either get more reps or up the weight. That simple. No staying stagnant, no plateauing, just me pushing forward. And I could not be happier with my progress, and it's only been like 2 weeks since I've had the headphones. So I can't even imagine what a couple more months of progress will look like. And for reference, me hitting 90s on incline dumbbell bench is kind of insane for me because right now my body weight, I'm sitting at 162. So I'm hitting 180 total body weight on that bench for reps at 162. Feeling pretty good about that. I feel really happy about that. And obviously, there's always going to be people out there that I see on social media doing way more than that. But to me, the beauty of cutting all that out is in between my sets, I'm not watching some guy incline bench 3 plates and making me feel like garbage. You know what I mean? It's just me and the weight. And that's what life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be you and the next challenge in front of you. So I just think that story perfectly embodies how I've been feeling lately and how I feel right now. I'm elated because of how my workout went today. I'm just so happy that I've been so unbelievably focused. And I'm telling you guys, no matter what it is you want to do in life, if you can apply that brutal focus for the time that you want to work, your life just gets 10 times better because you can spend the rest of your time doing whatever you want. Where that 6-hour task gets compressed into, let's say, 2 hours, you have 4 more hours to go out and do whatever you want. So rather than, sitting there with your Netflix going and your assignment open on one screen and a game open on the other, yes, I'm looking at you. Rather than doing that, just focus up, cut all the noise, and just do what you have to do because you will thank yourself later, as I am thanking myself right now.
And you know what, man? Like, I could not agree more. I'm an avid multitasker. Just like the last thing I wanted to tack on was like, it's hard to remember a moment when you're doing so much because you're not present. Like, I can remember vividly, like, there's one game of Overwatch. Like, it's very, very vivid, one game of Overwatch where I duo queued with one of my friends, and we ended up getting into a lobby against 2 of our other friends. And both of us were on our rank up matches to Diamond.
Oh my God, I remember this.
Me and my friend, we both play the same character, right? Junkrat, for those of you that like play Overwatch.
Yeah.
And it's final point in overtime, and we both rip tire, which is our ultimates, at the same time. Same exact time. We both
but you guys were both on enemy teams.
Enemy teams.
Okay.
Both playing Junkrat. And it's final point, overtime, for the win. We both pop rip tire at the same time. I detonate mine a millisecond before his, get a triple kill, and the explosion destroys his tire too. And we won the game because of it, and I ranked up. And it was just like that moment's so vivid for me. And the reason for it is it was years ago. It was years before I ever thought or even had the idea of hopping on my phone in between games. It was before I had the idea of hopping on my phone every time I died for the 15 seconds before I respawn, right? It's before I had those ideas. And yet today, there have been times where I've like gone on my phone in between like a game or even watched something during a game when I'm just like bored or I'm playing quick play and I don't care. But I don't remember. I don't remember those games.
It all just kind of melts together.
Exactly. It's just like there's too much. It's too loud. It's too colorful for me to like remember anything. And it makes me kind of regret that like I let time slip by because I was doing so much. Like that's what's crazy is you were trying to do so much to maximize the time that you lost all of it.
Damn.
That and that haunts me. Man, that haunts me because I just like I wish I could have it's like I'm in the Interstellar scene, like banging on the thing, like don't go. But it's like, don't watch videos and do assignments and play video games at the same time. Like just do one and just live it, experience it, love it. But yeah, you just gotta live, man.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. Like it's overstimulus, right?
Yeah.
Your brain is a machine that's trying to process all this stuff. It can't keep up with how much you're trying to put it through. So honestly speaking, you're 100% right. We're just cutting the extra stimulus out is huge. And the funniest thing for me was the second you said, oh, one of the things I remember very vividly, I can't even explain this, why I thought about this, but there were two experiences that I thought about when you said that. The first one was, do you remember that time at the old house when we were playing mini hockey and the power went out? So we were playing with candles lit in the kitchen.
Oh my God, yes, I do remember that.
Do you think about that? How many years ago was that? We moved to our new house at least, it's been like at least 10 years now.
Probably.
That's crazy. Over a decade ago. We're talking like a long, long time ago. And I still vividly remember that day playing mini hockey right there. And then, you know what? I'll stem that to another memory. Do you remember when we went to Sunshine Coast on a trip with the family and we were playing mini hockey in that house with like two shoes as our nets and whatnot? You know why I remember that memory so vividly? I made a huge point during that 4-day trip to not go on my phone once.
Yeah, you had your dopamine detox.
I had a dopamine detox, and all I did was I brought a book and I played mini hockey with you and, took in the sunshine and everything. Because Sunshine Coast is beautiful, man. Like beautiful beaches, great, nature and everything. That was such a key moment for me to realize, oh my God, it really is the damn phone. And the worst part about this is, we can touch on this on another episode because we're running long here. The worst part about this is, even though I know how bad it is for me, I can't stop doing it. And I think that's the case for a lot of us. And that's definitely something I want to touch on for next week. So editor's note, write this down. I just don't know what to do about cutting that out. There's something that I've got to figure out. But to all of you guys struggling with it, know that you're not alone, right? And for me being able to cut it out during the gym, it took a certain catalyst and a certain situation where I saw, okay, this is very clearly a problem, and the outcome from cutting it out is very, very good. That was what allowed me to do that. But even then, that's a very minuscule amount of time where I'm cutting that bad habit out. We're talking about maximum 2 hours where I'm at the gym. And that in that time frame, I'm very controlled and very good about it. I don't let anything get to me. But for the rest of my day, it's still tough. It's still very tough. So it's definitely something I want to do a bit more research into, why we continue to do things that are bad for us. And I think that a lot, not just you and me, but everybody who listens can benefit from that as well. So I'll do my research and I'll get back to it on that. But to wrap up today's show, ladies and gentlemen, you already know what time it is. Let's get to some good news stories. It's time for your weekly woohoos. Woohoo! All right. So 2 stories for you guys as usual. All right. So the first story, do you know who SB Mowing is?
SB Mowing. Yeah, the guy who does like free lawn mowing.
All right. Yeah, of course. Love this guy, bro. His name is Spencer, and he works for a landscaping company. Absolute legend. I've always liked this guy's content. And for those of you who don't know, he does run a landscaping business, and he's gone viral on TikTok for going around, and when he sees a house where the lawn is just insanely overgrown, he goes up to their front door and asks, hey, can I cut your grass for free? most people don't even believe him at first, but eventually after a bit of conversation, they realize, oh, he's a legit nice person. So he cuts it, records it, tells the story about why this lawn was so overgrown. And he does it all for free and then posts it on TikTok. And it's beautiful because this framework works so well because you're doing a good deed. And at the same time, it's super satisfying to watch the lawn go from super overgrown to like fixed. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So it's a combination of good work and a good deed. So great content from him. But I wanted to highlight one specific story because he's helped a ton of people. But this one specifically stood out to me. So the big one was that there was an elderly woman named Beth. And her grass was so insanely overgrown that the city actually sent her a legal notice saying that if she doesn't get her grass cut, they will charge her $240 and cut it themselves. Because it's like there are laws around having unkempt grass. So she was in a bit of a rut. Spencer shows up and is like, hey, I'll cut your grass for free. And she couldn't believe it, but lo and behold, he does it. So he cuts the grass, and she's in tears from how happy she is. And when I say elderly, I mean like really elderly. Like she would definitely has been struggling to keep things up. And that's what I like about his channel is like it's often underlying issues that lead to that uncut grass.
Yeah.
So regardless, he does this whole thing and posts it on TikTok. Everybody in the comments was like, hey, with how old she is, don't you think that a lot of these things around her house are accessibility issues for her? For example, having a staircase to her front door because it's very bad on her knees to walk up and down the stairs all the time. Or her driveway, which is super cracked that it's very clearly a tripping hazard. Is there anything we can do about it? So Spencer starts a GoFundMe for her and says, hey, here's the goal. I've done lawn work for her and this is her story, but the people think that we can do something better for her by adding this accessibility, aids, like maybe making a ramp for the stairs instead, and also redoing the driveway. Can we raise $100K? That was the goal. Lofty goal for sure. I checked it today. It's at $950,000. Yeah, $950K. We're talking like nearly a million, right? And then the beauty of it is Spencer also uploaded a update, like a comment, so that your money's actually going where it's supposed to be. And he said, hey, we found an attorney. We're going to set up a trust because this is a lot of money. And we're going to use that money either to renovate this house or get her into a flat where everything is very easy to access. So the beauty of that is he started something, but the community came to the aid, not just for the money, but also for the initial idea to upgrade. That wasn't his idea. That was the community saying, hey, we should do this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good in the world, man.
That's amazing, man. That's so
a lot of good in the world. And I just thought that was like super, super cool, especially because it's someone that most people watching this will know because he's pretty predominant on TikTok. Yeah. So very, very cool story. Second one for you guys is another little environmental story. So quick question for you to start this off. Yeah. Where do you think the largest rainforest in America is?
In America, like the United States?
The United States.
I could not tell you.
When you think of a very wildlife-driven state.
Florida. Because of the alligators.
Alaska.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yes, actually.
I thought all the forests would be like dead from the cold. Oh, wait, never mind. We watch Outdoor Boys.
Yeah.
Never mind. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I figured that was like so fresh in your brain, so that would have been your first guess.
I just thought about it, but yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, so the largest rainforest, it's called the Tongass National Forest. Very funny name, actually. I kind of giggled at it when I read it. It was very funny. But anyways, it's a national forest, and it's the biggest in in the United States. A bunch of logging companies tried to sue the U.S. Department of Agriculture and also the U.S. Department of Forest Services because they wouldn't let them cut down the trees in the rainforest for logging purposes. So they sued them. The judge, shout out to the GOAT Sharon Gleason, have to include the name so you guys know who we're talking about here. She looked at this case and looked at, the people getting sued and was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to give you guys a motion to dismiss with prejudice. Now, for those of you that don't know what that means, it means that these companies that are trying to sue the U.S. departments that are protecting the forest, these companies can never sue them for that reason again. No matter what they try to do, they can never do that again. So this is a huge thing because that forest is home to sea lions, bald eagles, the special kind of I forgot what they called it, like some sort of albino version of a ferret, like a very, very interesting animal. So a ton of interesting creatures, as you know from watching Outdoor Boys, just how wild Alaska is. It would be devastating to lose that kind of a forest. So it's nice to see people still taking legal action to actually help the environment. And that's what I like to say all the time. I feel like we're not as cooked as some social media platforms lead you to believe, because the doom and gloom point of things sells. It always gets views. People don't like to talk about the fact that, hey, we're very clearly doing some things right. Bet you didn't hear about either of those stories. And if you want to see more of that, stick around for next week, because we always have more good news.
Now that brings us towards the end of episode 82, but before you guys go, you already know what time it is. It's time for Quote
Of
the
Week.
Hit 'em.
Quote of the week. A focused fool can accomplish more than a distracted genius. And that is a quote from Alex Hormozi, who I think is a very good person who embodies that quote, because he has done so much stuff in business and succeeded in so many ventures. And he did that all by focusing. And I just figured that tying that back to my experience in this week was it was a perfect time to highlight this quote. Trust me, your life will change when you cut out the noise and focus on that one task you've been meaning to do. When you get rid of that extra stimulation, your brain unlocks a new level. Whether it's your brain or your body, even if you're talking about the gym or running, you can lock in and get so much more out of yourself by just cutting out the noise.
And with that, we come to the very end of episode 82 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. If you guys enjoy, please make sure to leave a like, comment, maybe something you want us to talk about or something that you really enjoyed from this episode. Make sure to check our last episode with Saoirse and stay tuned for the next one. But above all else, make sure that you do some reflection, that you understand that passion is of the utmost importance. Focus on living life. Life is not meant to be just an equation that you optimize, but something that you experience, something that you feel, not just something that you think about. Understand that life is meant to be experienced, but above all else, make sure you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.